All right, today we're going to be making a practice injection mold for a cup, something that looks like this. You've seen this mold in class before. A lot of these cup molds look very similar. They have very similar characteristics. Pretty simple. We got a core, we got a cavity. Now, in Tinkercad classes, I give you this. I give you the finished product, this guy right here, that's our cup. I give you the hole that I use to cut out the inside of that cup. That hole is right here. And then I give you the outside of the cup. We need to use these two shapes to make our mold, and then I'll show you how to double check that our mold's actually making this exact part at the end. I am going to go quick. If you need to pause and rewind, do that, but I'm going to fly through this. We're going to start by making the core half of the mold. So I'm going to drag this guy out. Hey, let's just make it 4 by 4. I'm going to make it gray so it looks more like a mold. Perfect. Next, we need to figure out, all right, we're making the core. The core makes up what? The inside or the outside of the product? This is the core. The core actually makes up the inside of the product, the inside space. So we're going to use the hole. Now we need to turn it into a solid shape. We don't actually want it as a hole. And just so I know that it's different than this guy, I'm going to make it gray. I need to flip it upside down because if it was the other way, if it was this way, the mold halves wouldn't be able to fit together. Bad things would happen. So I'm going to flip it upside down. From here, I'm going to drag it roughly into the center of my mold. I'm going to work plane drop it. So I'm going to go work plane, click here, click on the cup, click the letter D to drop it. Perfect. I'm going to get rid of that work plane, click out of there. Then I'm going to center this just so it looks nice. So highlight, click L. We're going to go center, center, and let's group it. All right. Next up, we need to make these guide pillars or pins, whatever you want to call it. They just help align the molds. Let's keep it simple. We're going to use a cylinder. I'm going to scale this down to a 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be exactly a 1/2 inch. It also doesn't matter where exactly you put these as long as it kind of looks right. The important thing is that these pillars line up precisely with the holes in your cavity half. So that's what matters. It's also a good idea that your pin should stick up farther than your core, because when this mold half comes together, you don't actually want let's say the mold halves are slightly misaligned. Well, in that case, your core is going to slam into your cavity. It might scuff it up. It might ruin your mold, and that's an expensive mistake. But if you have your pins sticking up higher, your pins are going to hit first, and they're going to guide the mold halves into alignment. So just make sure this guy is a little taller than this guy. If you want to be real fancy, we can give this a little bit of a bevel, something like that. But if you do that by dragging our slider, let's push it down some so we're not seeing this down here at the bottom. That doesn't really look right. Perfect. Let me arrow key this on over, and I'm going to make 4 of them. So Control D, send it on over. Does that look right? Yeah, that looks right. I'm going to actually group these guys together. So I clicked Shift, and then I clicked on this guy. Control G to group it. I'm going to duplicate both these guys and send those duplicates on over. Perfect. Again, it doesn't matter exactly where you put these so long as they line up with the hole in your cavity. I'm going to group all this together. Perfect. Next up, I'm going to duplicate this guy. Control D, arrow key it on over. I'm going to save this guy just off to the side. This guy I'm going to actually use as a tool or as a hole to carve out the cavity. However, I need to do something to currently what is the core. That core, if I ungroup this, Control Shift G to ungroup it, that core is actually slightly smaller than the outside of my product, end product. My outside end product is 1.338. The core is 1.298. So what I need to do is actually replace this guy with this guy. So I'm going to flip this guy upside down. If you want to delete this, you can. Don't really have to. I'm going to regroup all my pins together just so I don't accidentally mess them up. I'll drag it roughly into the center, highlight these guys, click Align, Center, Center. Then I'm going to Work Plane, drop this guy, and then I'm going to group it. So again, I'm going to use this as a hole or as a tool to carve out the top half, or I should say the cavity half of my mold. All right. Just because I want to make this solid, I'm going to do that. I'm going to drag a box over here. I'm going to make it 4x4 because that is what my, yikes, that's what my core half is. It's 4, tab 4, enter. And I'm just going to align these, highlight. I'm just going to go corner, corner. It doesn't really matter which ones you click. And this guy, I'm going to turn it transparent so I can see just how tall I'm making it. I want to make it, I don't know, a little taller than my pillars, alignment pins, whatever we're calling them. All right, so that's going to work for now. I'm going to turn this blue part into a hole, and I'm going to highlight these guys and group it. All right, that was pretty easy. However, we're missing something. We're missing two things, actually. One, we're missing a sprue. We're just going to keep this simple. We're just going to give us a little hole going from here down into our cup. All right, so let's drag one of these guys out. I'm going to make this solid. I'm going to make mine 1/8 of an inch. All right, it needs to be taller. I also need to send it actually down into our mold half. Send it on down. I'm sure that's going to, yeah, that's going into our cavity. I'll highlight these guys. I'll center that. In reality, the sprue should be tapered. It should be tapered just like how you can see our cup is tapered. That way it slides out of the mold easily, but hey, this is going to be good enough for now. I'm going to highlight this, group it. Boom, we got our sprue. What else are we missing? Well, let's think about it. That plastic can get shot down into our mold, and you can see this is a really, really thin cup. You can barely make out the difference between the cavity and the core. What are we missing? Well, we're missing vents. Now let's think about where could we put vents? Well, we'd probably want to put it on the rim of the cup, right? That makes sense to me. Which half of the mold should we put it on? We're going to put it on the cavity half just because that's going to be easier for us for now. So I'm going to actually duplicate all this and send this guy over here. Send this guy here. I need to rotate this guy upwards. I'm going to drop it to my work plane. And I'm going to, yikes. What happened to my mouse? There we go. Okay, mouse is not working. Love it when that happens. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give ourselves little tiny vents. I'm going to give us 4 of them, right? Because that's having a lot of vents isn't really going to hurt us. What is up with my mouse? There we go. All right, we're good. We're good. These vents, remember, they're super, super tiny. So I'm going to drag just one of these guys out. The width, hey, I'm not gonna bother you too much about your width. Mine's currently 1/8 of an inch. Hey, that's fine. The important thing is that the height, or let's call it the thickness of it, that is, Tinkercad only goes down to the nearest 1,000th of an inch. Sometimes events are less than that. They're 1/2 thou or 1/2 thousandth. Hey, let's just put in 0.001, 1,000th of an inch. All right, that's almost nothing. I'm gonna give us 4 vents. So I'm gonna duplicate this guy. I'm gonna rotate it. Now, unfortunately, these guys are just sitting on top of the mold. So if you were to group it, we wouldn't actually carve out a hole. We just get this line here. I'm going to align these tops. So I'm going to highlight everything, click align, and then looking at it from the side, I'm going to click this top dot. That pushes everything up top. All right, then I'm just going to go ahead and group it. All right, boom, I got my vents. That way the air can escape. So here we go. We're going to rotate this guy upside down. I'm going to align these guys. First, I'm going to work plane drop this guy to here. Align, center, center. I'm going to turn this guy transparent, this guy transparent. Now, here is how we can figure out if our mold would actually make this product. We're going to turn our entire mold. I'm going to duplicate this, send this guy off to the side. I can delete this guy now. because I'm going to turn this entire thing into a hole. Then I'm going to drag one of these guys right here, and I'm just going to make it big enough to take up my cavity, like that. Now, this isn't perfect, but this is going to give us a good enough kind of feel as to whether or not our mold would work. I'm going to group all this together. We're still going to see that sprue. That part's going to be kind of cool. The only issue is we're going to see our vents, essentially, on the product, right? So I just grouped it together. Let's see, is our cup hollow? Yes, it is. Now, again, we do have these vents right here. In reality, plastic shouldn't be seeping through those vents, so we wouldn't actually see that. But it's possible that we would have this little sprue mark here. Maybe it would be smaller. It's also possible that it's made with what's called a hot runner. It's a little different than this, but we haven't gotten there. So if you grouped your mold onto a solid object and it looks sort of like a cup, hey, congratulations, you did it right.